And then can you comment on your own personal experience with your own mental health? It seems like, the skin issues, gut health, mental health, they all kind of run together. And again, we kind of understand the mechanisms of why that would be the case. But for your own personal, mental health, what have you noticed since kind of transitioning over into this type of diet?
Yeah, then and now. I mean, I myself personally, I struggle with anxiety. I used to have and it used to really get in my way. And when I'm eating clean and when I'm following the diet, it's not an issue at all. And so in my early 20s, I had tried I was on antidepressants. They didn't work. It's that's one of the the reasons why I can see how Chris Palmer and other researchers are getting the results that they're getting, which are pretty remarkable. Like people who have bipolar disorder that don't respond to medications at all, they are on no meds and not experiencing any more bipolar symptoms. And so it's hard to believe when you first start hearing these stories, but then you hear it again and again. So it's like repeatable. And so it's definitely it's not for everybody though. That's the thing. It's not easy to eat a strict diet, and so I think that's why. And some people don't want to, and so it's not something that I think everyone can have the ability to access.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's a great transition into what you predominantly talk about as far as like autism goes. What had your experience been like to see that changeover in your own diet, understand the mechanisms, and then explain it to people? What was it like to help people who I guess were willing and able to do that transition? And what kinds of things did you see in the world of autism when somebody was willing to address their diet?
Yes, yeah, no, and that's definitely a passion of mine, is helping people who do choose this path, and that's like an important thing to note, that you do have to choose this path, and I think far too often people are just looking for a quick fix, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, I cut out gluten, but it didn't work, and so but. Did they really cut out gluten, or how did they try it out? And so it's. You really do have to make the decision and commit to it. But there, in the world of the biomedical field of autism, like it's very much related to the functional medicine field in other areas, because it's the same issues that are being addressed, but just to a different scale, and perhaps maybe they tend to have some other issues that the general population doesn't. But the basic philosophy is you want to get the nutrients in, you have to get the right vitamins, and you have to get the toxins out. And so people with autism, individuals with autism are more likely to have trouble getting the toxins out. And so that's one of the issues, is that but their liver isn't functioning correctly, their kidneys aren't functioning correctly, their digestion isn't happening properly, and so they're not getting the nutrients in, but then they're also not able to get any toxins out. And so the approach with them is a little bit you have to look at the reason why. What is the reason why they're not getting the toxins out? And interestingly, a lot of times they have things like yeast overgrowth or parasites, excessive parasites, and so you have to address those issues before you can start getting the nutrients in. And so it's a bit of a different approach, but and the other piece is, in terms of the nutrients, is that they also have difficulty processing B vitamins. And that's a thing that lots of other individuals too. And so it might be a genetic predisposition that they have, where like a certain mutation on a gene, like one is called the MTHFR gene, that is relatively common. And when you have a certain mutation on that gene, your body doesn't process B vitamins and folate specifically the right way. And so individuals with that presentation, they need to take special types of B vitamins in order to address it. And the interesting thing about that is, the carnivore approach, which focuses on, like meat, and especially with the specifically with like organ meats, has all of the B vitamins. In addition to other stuff, it also will have, zinc, of course, and other things as well. And so, one way that you can kind of cover all bases with the B vitamins is just by, taking like a liver supplement, and so, an organ meat supplement, and so that's one real efficient way to kind of cover all those bases.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you're working primarily with adolescents, is that correct?
No. Lots of preschoolers, anywhere from ages 3, 3 and older.
Okay, gotcha. So for a 3-year-old, they're not necessarily in charge of their diet, right? You have to have the parents on board. The family's got to be on board. What have you noticed as far as compliance or like willingness to take this on? Because you're right, it's difficult for people to be on this diet. I think once somebody gets used to it and understands the benefits, and like you and I kind of stepping away from anxiety and getting on the other side of it to see like, oh, wow, I have way less anxiety now. I don't really want to go back to that. What have you noticed as far as compliance and willingness to take on diet?
Yeah, the biggest the biggest issue with kids who are on the spectrum is that they can be extremely picky eaters. And so it's it's sometimes called ARFID, avoidant and restrictive food intake disorder, would be the actual diagnosis. But these kids, they're extremely picky eaters. They only eat certain preferred foods, and when they're presented with a food that they don't want to eat, they might gag, they might like throw up. And so could be very challenging. It's not as easy as just kind of like, you can have the best food in the world and the best chef cooking it, but it won't, you still can't get the food in. And so very often it's a very like slow process, because you have to slowly introduce new foods as you're taking away, problematic foods.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's a big issue. On top of, yes, it's just tough in certain families for them to change the diet. It could be that, mom is on board and sees the benefit and does everything the right way. But then, if say dad's not on board, or maybe grandma's not on board, then they can really kind of sabotage the whole process.
Yeah,
and so
that makes sense.
Yeah. It can be, so those two things can be challenging. And then dealing with the ARFID. So it is, interestingly, oftentimes when kids are extremely picky, they'll have like yeast overgrowth, or they'll have lots of parasites in their gut. And if you address those, which you can address those with different, prescription and also herbal medications, it opens up their palate. It becomes easier to introduce those new foods.
Interesting. I've not heard of that. What are some of the things you can do if somebody has like parasites and digestive issues that you're describing?
Yeah, so there are treatments. So for like both yeast and parasite overgrowth, there's different binders that are used that help the body get rid of the toxins. And then also there are some antibiotic treatment if it's really severe for the yeast. But then there's also some other herbal medications, like biocidin is one of them. There's a protocol using that will take care of and then also, of course, the yeast, as you know, like Candida, is also very much diet related, and each feeds on sugar and carbohydrates. And so cutting out, or limiting sugar and carbohydrates is, very important, for a lot of things, but
Gotcha.
Especially for that.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. Did you watch the documentary, The Magic Pill, when it came out?
No, I haven't.
So it was one of the, kind of one of the OGs as far as like documentaries about the ketogenic diet. It's actually kind of hard to find. I think you can find it on YouTube now, but it used to be on Netflix. And part of what they do is they follow a few different stories. And one of the kiddos is, I believe, autistic, somewhere on the scale. And she is eating, your typical chicken nuggets and is super picky with her food. And she is an absolute disaster. I mean, she is so hard on her parents, and her behavior is terrible and throwing tantrums all the time. And they learn about the ketogenic diet and they're willing to make this transition over. And they start making her like steak, for example. And at first it's like, throw the plate, throw the steak, just again, just a total gremlin of a person. But eventually, like through a transition of a few weeks, she starts to eat it. Then she starts to enjoy it. And her temperament that you see on camera, it is amazing. It is completely night and day. She just completely chills out. She doesn't throw tantrums. She will sit and listen and is an absolute sweetheart. And so I would love to do a follow-up with them to see how that is going, if she's still on it. But is that kind of what you've noticed, that like if somebody is willing to go through that transition period, the behavior can be like night and day in some of these kids?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And that's the reason why, and the examples that we have of people who have done this successfully, they're all, parents who are doing it out of necessity, because it's, they won't sleep through the night, or, they're, and then, waking up everyone else in the house. They can't go out to a restaurant to eat because, their, behaviors are so severe. And so it's, out of necessity that they have to, look for different things, and they try different things. And, but yeah, it's, those are the types of, some of the types of improvements that you would see, is just, an increase in their tolerance for stress, kind of like their stress cup gets bigger and they're less likely to have a meltdown.